So you may have heard about it, but it's also a reality now. Fuel prices have shot up once more at the pumps, raising concerns about the implication for the cost of living. Now, diesel, for instance, as we understand, is being sold at 14 cedis per litre. The latest rise is being attributed to the restoration of the controversial Unified Petroleum Price Fund, which is contributing to the marginal rise that we're experiencing. So what are the projections going forward for fuel prices and the implication on the economy? Joining us now, Fritz Moses, research analyst with the Institute for Energy Security. Fritz, so take us away. Give us a projection from your desk. What do you see happening in the coming days?
All right, Blessed. Thanks for having me. Unfortunately, we are expecting that prices at the various pumps would reduce, particularly for petrol. We are expecting to see a reduction to about 10 cedis 55 pesos per litre for the various OMCs. But unfortunately, like you rightly mentioned, with the reintroduction of the UPPF margin on the price board, we are seeing rather an increment in the price. What we are picking up from the international markets is that prices continue to fall. Of course, that is good news to the consumer. We expect that it would still continue. Of course, ending last week, the last pricing window, we saw oil trading around $121 per barrel. Fortunately, now prices have dropped to around $117, trading around $115 per barrel. And so we expect to see a continual fall in prices on the international markets. Unfortunately, however, we don't see our city appreciating against the US dollar. We expect that the various the speculations in the market with the government of Ghana engaging the IMF would show up some investor interest in the country's and finances and economy. And of course, that will mean that we may see an uptick in the rise, an uptick in the strength of the cedi against the US dollar. If those two activities.
Yeah, and well, Fritz, we're having some challenges hearing you. If you could kindly unmute, but I guess the basic concerns has to do with the pumps and whether or not all of these effects and interventions you're talking about will yield some reduction. That's what we're on the lookout for. Fritz, if you can hear me, kindly unmute so we can get the point you're making. But I'm concerned about the pumps as well and what the implications will be.
Okay, so basically what I was trying to make was that, of course, with our expectation, and we see the markets prices continue to fall in the international markets, we hope that it will continue for the next few couple of weeks that we have ahead of us. If that should happen, then we believe that barring any further reintroduction of the various margins that were removed on April 1st this year, we would see prices rather fall at the various pumps.
The argument has been made that the OMCs haven't recouped all the losses they've made, particularly during the COVID-19 period. One of the major reasons for which we're not seeing that sharp or steep decline. What do you have to say about such arguments as well?
Well, we also heard of such positions by some BDCs and OMCs. Of course, we also heard some OMCs complain about the fact that they still had stock from the previous window that were priced higher, and so prices were expected to maintain or even go higher for diesel especially. What we believe is that, of course, with new products coming in with their prices and with prices falling on international market, as I've already indicated, we are seeing petrol prices fall about 2%, diesel prices is falling around 9%, LPG is falling around 6% on international markets. We expect that this will influence the current price that we would see at the various pumps from this week, going on to next week. Because next week, next 2 weeks, next week, we expect to see more fall in price on the international markets, and that should definitely reflect at the various pumps.
And the concern about the varieties, or I mean the variations, I should say, in diesel and petrol. What accounts for that? How come you find the crude form of that product costing much more than petrol itself, which is more refined?
Well, unfortunately, what's happened is Ghana, we source our diesel particularly from the European markets. Now, if you go to Europe, majority of their about 40% of their diesel needs is produced by Russia. And now with the restrictions that have had to be put in place following the Russia-Ukraine war, what has happened is it's costing supply glut in Europe, and so they are seeing some reduction in supply of the products there, meaning that they are seeing some shortage there. And so, of course, with supply halted and demand still rising, because we've entered the summer season, so we see how demand will continue to increase from there. That would mean that prices will start to increase, and prices have already been increasing. And so that's what has been accounting for the consistent rise in prices for diesel. Unfortunately, efforts by Saudi Arabia and the other Arab League nations to produce that that supply glut that Russia is unfortunately bringing on the European market hasn't been able to meet up with that existing impact from the supply inefficiency. And so we would continue to see that inability of Russia to supply on the European market affect prices, of course, causing prices to rise up. Unfortunately, however, for gasoline, that's petrol, we see US pumping in much of its reserves on the European market, and so we see how that is able to stabilize the market the more.
Anyway, from COVID-19 to Russian-Ukraine war. Anyway, we'll have to leave there. Thank you, Fritz, for helping us out with the analysis. But there's a group, the Coalition for Democratic Accountability and Inclusive Governance, which is expressing displeasure about the heightened levels of economic hardship based on the rising cost of fuel and other commodities as well in the country. The group wants immediate action from our authorities. Joining us now via Zoom is Kofi Bentil, Vice President, Imani Africa. Thank you, sir, for your time. So where do we start from? From the leadership or from the people? Kofi Bentil, if you could... Yes, if you could kindly unmute so we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Right.
Right. So, good afternoon. Definitely, leadership is everything. It starts from leadership. Our address is first to leaders. And our point is that whatever our leaders are doing, the effect on the people clearly is not what we expect it to be. So we are hoping that there will be some sort of a shift in whatever leadership paradigm they are implementing, because things are really bad right now, and we hope to see some changes.
But Kofi, you've heard the argument, and I'm sorry to be repeating that again, issues about the externalities and how we're vulnerable to it. Is that justifiable enough?
No, it's not. It's not at all. Look, again, the best example to give is that we are in a sub-region where we have generally the same kind of conditions or similar conditions across, and you don't see the same kind of situation elsewhere. Before these externalities, okay, we had problems, and we were drumming on those problems. And one of the things that we said before COVID and before Ukraine war was that managing an economy this tight to the rope, as if we can never hit a crisis, is not smart. Way back then, even when we were discussing free SHS at Imani, we said, look, you cannot put all your resources on one program. It's just not smart. So our problem started pre-COVID. Our loan book, the borrowing, the profligacy, the waste, the corruption, the V8 culture started before COVID. Then COVID hit us and made things worse. And still we did not see change. Then after COVID, we had this Ukraine war, which made things even worse. Then they decided they were going to bring e-levy. Whenever we have a problem, they come back to the same suffering citizens and force us to give up even more of what we don't have. And they were told that, look, what you need to do is cut the waste, cut the profligacy, cut the unnecessary expenditure. All right. We are not saying people should not, live comfortably, but you don't have a right to live like an Arabian king when the rest of the people cannot feed. Which is why we will always have problems with things like the president flying in expensive jets when there are options to that. And it's not because somebody doesn't like somebody or whatever it is. We are saying that if you are leaders, connect to our common reality. Your job is not to live large at our expense. Your job is to do what you can to alleviate our situation. So our problems predate COVID, and they predate this Ukraine war, and we are saying our leaders need to shift and do a better job at this leadership thing.
Kofi, are there any exact demands you're putting before government as a coalition?
Yes, we put out a statement, and I think you should read through the statement. So there were some specific demands that we put. and we are expecting government to respond to some of them. Some of them have to do with asset declaration. We need government to speak to those things. Some of them have to do with withdrawing the Ijapa deal, which they are proceeding full speed ahead on, because if they do not, we will react. And a number of things, the corruption, we have a statement out there, which we have sent to you as well. And what we are looking for is this. You can't solve all the problems tomorrow, but we need to see you move. We need to see you take some action. We need to see you move in the right direction so that we have some hope that you are serious about solving the problem. There is a general feeling that the leadership or part of it has given up, that they don't care what happens and we are just on autopilot. There is a general feeling that nothing is going to change. People are calling for accountability. People are calling for people to resign. We don't hear anything. It's not so much because somebody wants somebody's downfall, but the point is you are doing a job for us and you are doing a particularly bad job. So it's okay if we say that, look, we need to see some changes in the personnel. But it doesn't look like anybody cares about all those calls and they're going to just go ahead and do what they want to do anyway. I think that attitude is wrong. And the coalition is saying that, look, we take a very serious view to the fact that if you take on leadership, you must do the work. If you cannot do the work, just move off and let somebody else do the work.
Yeah,
instead of holding on to the power and then just not doing anything about it.
Yeah, but let's take you up on the concern about, for instance, a reshuffle. What will definitely change if we know, for instance, that the president is still president? The constitutional requirement is that the ministers are to support the president in delivering his vision. So if it's not working, it's not working, regardless of who may be in that portfolio.
If it is not working, it is not working. If we take your position right now, what it means is that what we have now is the best Ghana can give. This is the country that produced Kofi Annan. This is the country that produced Kwame Nkrumah. This is the country that has produced many illustrious sons. You can't tell me that the performance we are seeing now is absolutely the best situation. The president must do better. He cannot leave us in this situation and pretend he can't do anything about it. Truth is, if the president takes the position that he cannot do anything about it, that is tantamount to declaring that he has to resign himself. So we expect leaders to do something to make things better. And if they are bereft of ideas, if this is their wit's end, if they don't have anything more they can bring to the table, then the honorable thing for them to do is for the government to resign. And there's room for that. So what we are saying is that, look, we have a country which God has blessed. The average Ghanaian will not take up certain things and then create, chaos. But the kind of pressure that Ghanaians are being put under, sometimes you are afraid that people will break and you don't know what will happen. So the leaders must lead. If they can't, they should just move off and let other people come and do the work. We have enough people to do the work.
Kofi, the argument has been made that the civil options have been exhausted. In fact, the latest being, we've seen about 2 days of straight protest by some groups. You have Arise Ghana, some of them, and we've seen other groups as well pour out onto the streets. The feeling is some of these civil options have been exhausted. Do you agree with such sentiments?
No, I don't agree with those sentiments. The civil options are never exhausted. You can get to the point where the whole country is going to grind to a gridlock because we are going to call everybody onto the streets and declare a month-long strike. All of us are going to suffer for it. But the point is, that's a civil option. The courts are still open, and regardless of what people think about the courts, they are still an option for us, and I still have confidence in the courts. So there are things that we'll be able to take to court, and if we have to, we will do so. And we are calling as citizens on our leaders to act, to do what they've promised to do what we pay them to do what they are taking upon themselves to do, for which they take very good pay and very good conditions. So they should just do it. Now, if they do not do it, they should leave and let other people do it. If they won't do it and they will not leave, we will confront them. We'll confront them in the courts. We'll confront them on the streets. We'll confront them on radio and on TV. We'll confront them as a coalition so that they can come up against one person in particular. And wherever we meet them, we will confront them because this is our country. We put them there to make our lives better. All we see is they go there and make their lives better. So I don't agree that the civil options have been exhausted. I think we have a lot more options, and it's a toolbox of options. We won't take just one. We will use all of them. If we have to go to court, we will go to court. If we have to confront them on radio and TV, we will confront them. Write statements, we will write statements. And if ultimately we have to call people onto the streets, we will do so.
I'm grateful for your time, Kofi Bentil, Vice President, Imani Africa.